Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Comix Rant Mini. I'm your host, Arvin Bautista, and happy 2025. This is my first episode of the new year, and we are going to start off with a bang. I just got my copy of DC Comics Style Guide. It is a reprint when it got published a long time ago, 1982. And this is kind of like the holy grail of purchases for fans, for sure, because this was a style guide that got generated by DC and I guess Warner Brothers when they were doing licensing long time ago. And they hired Jose Luis Garcia Lopez to do the art, a lot of the art. And I think there's like some style guide stuff here by Carmine Infantino, or I don't know, I'm just terrible with these names, but I hope I'm not butchering them too much because I love their art so much. This is a great new edition of it. It looks really great. It was a little delayed in 2024, but we finally got it. Let me take off. They have this nice little ribbon that goes on there. One of my favorite things. I am in a new setup today just because this book is so massive. I cannot quite get it in frame with my old setup. So this way we can see everything. So you can see here, I just undressed it a little bit. You can kind of see this cool double page back front spread here that they have that has been there. It used to be like in a binder, I believe, originally in 1982 and cost a lot of money. There's an introduction from the guys that printed this book, and they're just fans of these standard manuals, I guess, like these graphic design manuals and all sorts. And they actually tracked this book down just because it was done very well. They're not like super comic book fans or anything like that. It's just it was such a well designed, well put together style guide that they wanted to get their hands on it. And they got 2 copies of this. The originals, I guess it got redone in 1984, and this is 1984 when this is 1982, and there were some pages added in and so on and so on. It wasn't really meant to be like a book to be bought by fans or anything like that. It was for the licensees, the licensors, so they could kind of standardize what the look of the products would be. So they had like one really amazing artist, which from the introductions, and I think this introduction is by Paul Levitz, who's the editor for DC publisher for quite a long time. And he says that they hired the best artist that they could find. And that was Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. And best and easiest. And it's kind of cool that he says that because as I'm looking for contract work myself, I'm a freelancer. I know that is actually one of the things that people like. My artwork might not be setting hair on fire for a lot of people, right? I'm all right. But it does matter who you are and how you relate to people a lot, because you could be a rock star, and if you're just a total jerk, then no one's going to want to work with you again. Anyway, let's move on to this style guide. So, sorry, there was a picture here of the old DC crew and the production guys from the old New York office, I believe, which is kind of neat. That's like way back in the day, 1982. Anyway, so the style guide is really great. I was flipping through it and I love reading this. Like, this is probably like the most boring thing that people would read, because it's just like, okay, this is how you lay out things and blah blah blah, here's the color keys, and this is how you read pages and so on. But I found it very fascinating. A lot of graphic designers set up rules like this for logo and brand design and all that kind of stuff, and that just bores me. But I guess because this is DC and this is superheroes and it's comics, like, this is the most fascinating thing to me. So it's kind of cool how they try to get everybody on the same page. The color callouts, which I think they still use nowadays for print, Pantone colors, so that you can actually really match the color of what you see and what you pick. That is generally how I understand it, how they did it. So when they call out a certain yellow, it needs to be this yellow and this orange and so on and so on. And it's predictable and you can actually plan for it. So the product that you're producing will always look consistent. And I love this look. I love this like kind of flat color look. And yeah, there's a little shadow going on in here. But, like in Robot Man's thighs, inner thighs here. And then, but it's generally flat. Like Raven's cloak is just this one blue. Cyborg has like these blue shadows on there too. But I kind of like this look. I still do. And maybe I'm just kind of old school that way. But sometimes a lot of the gradients and colors in comics nowadays kind of detract for me, like the art itself. So here you go. This is Garcia Lopez's stuff. I'll flip it around for a little bit here, so just so we can see it. Garcia Lopez's stuff, and I'm a Superman fan, so I love seeing this Superman stuff. And I remember seeing some of these on, I think like I was collecting these trading cards when I was in the Philippines. They would come in like, I think they were like in these packs, and maybe they had a snack. Maybe it was like in a bag of chips. They were not meant for like collecting purposes, like not as in like I'll sell them back at some kind of crazy auction and get $1 billion for this card. It was just for fun. And that's totally what I wanted them for. It was just so fun to see these characters that I love and get them free with my bag of chips. And I totally remember a lot of these. And I think they're Jorge Jimenez, one of the artists for DC currently, when he was doing an Action Comics run, or was it Superman run, he had a cover that kind of mimicked this, where you would see like a lot of images of Superman as he's running the change and flying. And I think I have bed sheets that have, I believe, this Superman and a couple of the images that are from this book that I just remember as a kid. I'm just gonna flip through these pages quickly so you can see it. I had my comic book shop hold it for me, but he still has copies. He actually still has copies. So I go to the comic book store in San Francisco called Mission Comics and Art. It's in the Mission District. It's a really great place. He still has copies. So if you're around the area and you want a copy of this, drop by and pick it up. Here. I think this is that Superman that must have been on my bed sheet somewhere. And then there was another one. And it's kind of cool to see some of these because I don't think I've seen all of them. So it's kind of cool to see them in like how they were in the raw, so to speak, because it's all black and white. And this was a cool one. I think I saw this online a few years back, and it's just kind of cool. Like he's on the computer in the Fortress of Solitude style kind of thing. And they primarily did a lot of these in black and white. Like these and this Superman images, I'm pretty sure I've seen. And you know what? I think I actually saw some kind of packaging for a product recently that had one of these drawings on them, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. And what's funny is they have already made, this is a cool one, already made a bunch of other style guides with different artists. I'm pretty sure I've seen some that I think have a style that's like Ryan Sook's art, and it looks great. And he may have been the one who did it. And it's on all sorts of packaging, socks, t-shirts, all that kind of stuff. Old school Supergirl right here. Check it out. And there's like a call out on what it looks like in the back. It's like a yellow S shield. And, they have all sorts of modern looking art. And I think Garcia Lopez may have gone back in there and did some more relatively recent ones. Not, newer than 1982. But I just love his figure work. It's always been something super cool. Like this Superman is awesome with this Brainiac. And he's like the perfect guy to pick. And it's cool to read some of the introductions here because he says he just kind of picked it up. I mean, he knew it was a good job, and they apparently got paid well, premium prices for them, and I think they would get kickbacks. Must be from the licensing stuff if it got used. I'm not exactly sure what their deal was. Cool, Lana Lang has one of her own. Here's a Batman one. But he started it. He started drawing some of them. He said they were pretty free and very easy to work with. and he did these, but he didn't know the scope of it until I think it went to Dick Giordano, and some of these things got put together. So see, you got like the binder holes here so people could pull it out of the folder of the style guide. But we have mainly I think it's the three. Actually, I'm not even sure. Yeah, Wonder Woman's in here too, but Superman, Batman definitely were more extensive in their licensing images. A lot of this folder or these images are for those guys. There's a pretty awesome Batman face. It's got like this, it's essentially what he did look like when I was reading him in the Aparo days. And the yellow circle around the bat, that's the style this Batman looks like. And he said he did like all this research with Art Nouveau and Art Deco books and styles, so he could put them in frames and arrange them so that they would not just be floating figures. But, it's generally, that is what they needed, floating figures in space. So then, they can just be picked up and put on t-shirts and all sorts of things. And I think a lot of these guys match. I remember a card of the Joker like this, with this art. A lot of these things kind of carried through to this Super Friends cartoons. Here's a cool Wonder Woman one. Great figure work. Like, there's a lot of character going on, even though, it's a turnaround, but it's not like a turnaround per se as an animation turnaround where it's just really there so you can tell the model of this character and see exactly what these characters look like from the front, side, and back. So you could actually use it, and then the animator would put them in poses. This is already in poses, even though it's the front, side, and back. And I think that's kind of cool. Because these are also images that can be put on merchandise, but you still see what this character would look like in all sides. And you got some of these super classic poses. Just so great. It's just pages and pages full of these drawings. This must have been quite a fun job to do. And there's some cool scenes in here. And this face, I don't know why, it looks like Linda Carter. Something about her, right? I mean, these are the classic DC characters that everybody has stuck in their heads, basically. This is what they're measured up against, and they still are, right? Like, this is still what people picture them to be doing, always smiling. There's some cool things going on here, and it kind of mixes it up with this just pure line work, and then more solid and blocked in with these heavier blacks to kind of frame her within this like wispier line. Very cool. Even the cheetah makes it in there. Yeah, definitely brings me back. And the interesting thing is that was Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. The next guy on this lineup is, it's Captain Marvel. But it's interesting, when I looked at this, I was like, wait, he's labeled as Shazam. This is before like all the craziness. Or maybe there was craziness already going on with with Marvel itself, Marvel Comics getting the copyright for the name Captain Marvel, I believe. That's why he's called Shazam. At least I only know he really truly got rebranded officially into Shazam during the New 52. So he started getting called Shazam instead of Captain Marvel, much to the fans' dismay, because Marvel snaked in and grabbed it. But see, it's interesting. So this says Shazam, and I think here in the bio, right? They have like a sort of little bio, which is very handy. It does name him as Captain Marvel, except here there's a note, and it says Shazam's cape is not transparent. So even the style guide is actually calling him Shazam. So when people do get confused and go, "Wow, what's going on there? Why is he's not named Shazam?" I mean, he says Shazam, and he transforms into this guy, right? And Captain Marvel Jr. says Captain Marvel, and becomes Captain Marvel Jr. So people in the general public already see him as Shazam, but this style guide also calls him Shazam. So it is confusing. Even though fans will be like, no, he's called Captain Marvel. And yeah, he is called Captain Marvel, but I can see why people got confused. This Mr. Mind is pretty awesome. And there's a lot. There's a lot of these Shazam pages. So I'm guessing at a certain time, he must have been pretty popular. He would be one of the main ones that they would offer. Fan-freaking-tastic Justice League of America pinup. Just so good. It's so good. And there's like all these other ones too, by the way, that I've never seen before. But it's cool who they include. Firestorm's already in here. This is 1982. I did not realize he was that old. But, I mean, he's still a new character then. But, you know, I thought he was a little newer than that. Red Tornado, Firestorm, and then I think this is George Perez costume, Zatanna. Actually, I'm not sure who designed that costume, but Green Arrow and Elongated Man are here, which is pretty cool. It's funny, he's here, but there's also... Oh, yeah, so, okay, there's another one. So the pages here are kind of flipped a little different, but I don't think it's a big deal. It's only like 3 of these. But these are cool, like, team-up pages. Very cool. Red Tornado and Batman? You know, it's like these kind of team-ups that I wish we actually saw more of. I don't know what's going on here. You know, it's like a circle of life thing going on with the Justice League. You know, Dr. Fate is in this mix. Martian Manhunter. Oh, look at this. Are there 2 of these? No, it's just very similar. With the same guys. So it's interesting because I will be able to kind of pick out certain things. And, you know, I'm not exact. It doesn't explicitly say who drew them or who inked over it. I know Dick Giordano is inking over Garcia Lopez. But there's Carmine Infantino stuff, and I can tell it in certain places. Sometimes I'm like, well, who drew this? This doesn't quite look like Garcia Lopez. It could be, but it looks like he's being inked by somebody else. So then they have like these little bios on these characters. Aquaman gets one. But I guess he actually has a few pages here. The Flash, I think there's a Green Lantern one that's really quick. This is a pretty cool pose here. It's just all outstretched. Very cool stuff. Green Arrow. You know, in the Neil Adams costume. Green Lantern, of course. Yeah, that's cool. With the frame here. Like a Art Deco-y frame-ish. The Emerald Warrior. I'm not sure where he got these, these logos from. Very cool poses. Hawkman, Hawkwoman. Yeah, so there's a couple pages here that I'm like, oh, is this the Carmine stuff? Firestorm. Just good stuff. Let's see if I can actually find it. And then some of this, like, ink work, I'm like, is this Walt Simonson doing these inks? I'm not sure. I'm not actually sure. I mean, some of it looks like it could be. But their names aren't in the binder, I guess, so they're not originally there, so they're not mentioned in the back of this either. And then, you know, there's a difference in inking here that I'm like, okay, that's not purely Garcia Lopez looking. I'm curious to find out. I'm actually also curious to see like what kind of kickbacks they got. And then there's also, this guy was in the Super Friends. I remember he was super cool. I didn't realize his name was just Samurai. I thought he was like Super Samurai? Yeah, Super Samurai. Was that it? Cyclotron. Like there's these characters here that I'm like, whoa, I don't know these guys. Golden Pharaoh. Oh, Mr. Miracle. All right. And then you got a little Kirby going on in here. And it doesn't look like Garcia Lopez. These. I could be wrong. Someone correct me, please. And then an Orion one that I was like, what? He looks like Manny Faces from He-Man, which was, I will call out because that was my favorite action figure. But this must be for like the toy line. So the toys must have looked like this. So yeah, so maybe this is the stuff that's not... this looks like it could be Garcia Lopez. I don't know. Anyway, so then there's also like these Titans things in the back. And this looks like a mix of... well, he definitely has his stuff here, which I think is this. This is Garcia Lopez. But then you got Perez here too, George Perez, which is kind of cool. I'm curious to see what kind of money they made. I mean, I don't need to know the actual money, but if they made money off of any kind of licensing things that got kicked back to them, like on if someone buys a bed sheet with his drawing on it, does he actually get it? So I think this looks like Garcia Lopez. And you know, I took it for granted because I was such a George Perez fan. This looks like Perez right here. I was such a George Perez fan that when he left the Titans, I was like, who could take over George Perez? And I was still kind of a hater because that was the first time I saw Garcia Lopez's stuff. And you know, for a little bit, I was like, oh, but it's not Perez. But man, he definitely was the only one able to take over of George Perez. And his stuff looks great. They're like super solid figures. Really great compositions for panels. Here's the other guy that I'm like, why? They made a Plastic Man call sheet or whatever this is. Like, wow. I guess somebody thought he was kind of bankable. I don't know what happened. I mean, I love Plastic Man. Don't get me wrong. He did have an animated show that I loved watching. So maybe that's why this guy was in there. But there's also the superpower stuff. But in this folder, it's just really logo design. So I'm not even sure who did this. But this is kind of like what everybody also kind of knows. And then there's these, which I have seen. It's Super Juniors, which I have seen on certain things. I'm like, what the heck is this stuff? But they're like older products. I don't think anybody ever uses this, but it's interesting. I'm not sure who made these, but you know, it's a different art style. Yeah, no, really, Arvin? Yeah. But it's also included in here, which is totally cool. And then they have these more team up shots. And these are so great. You know, you get the black and white and the color versions. And I could just look at this stuff all day. This stuff is just really good. You know, I'll get gifts from my nieces and my family, my kids, and it'll be like the Superman or DC. Oh, so here. So this looks like somebody else to me. And this could be Infantino. It's like a Super Friends thing. So there's like, I think just a couple pages. It's not a lot. This Wonder Woman's awesome. Garcia Lopez's figure work is always just top notch. It's just so clear and so great. And this is like, you know, you're buying this thing because of his art. And I'm glad they put it together in a nice reprint of this. You know, I'm just flipping through all these pages. Just fantastic looking stuff. Definitely something worth waiting for and getting into my collection. These are cool. The ladies of DC. I like Zatanna in her top hat and fishnets, but I gotta say, I kind of like this superhero version of her too. I don't know why. It's the old school 80s kid in me. Oh, the super bad guys. Yeah, I definitely got, like, I definitely was collecting these cards, and I think they had these images in them. That's why they're so familiar. Oh, here's another one. That could be like an Infantino one. Color versions. And then that's it. I mean, it's just pure art. You're going in here for the art. That's it. It's nicely done, nicely printed. And my comic shop owner was saying, you know, around the end of the year, these things were a little harder to print and get done. So maybe that's why it was delayed a little bit. I'm glad I got it in my hands. So there's all this stuff going on nowadays, politically and in the US. So my comic shop owner was a little concerned because there's talk about tariffs going on to different countries that are outside the US. So paper would be one of the ones that would get taxed a lot, and printing, because none of this stuff actually happens in the US anymore. If you notice, a lot of books, they're made in China or printed in Canada, or made in China, then brought over to Canada and printed and then sold in the US. So he's a little weary about what's going to happen next year. I hope nothing bad happens, because I do like my comics. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Comix Rant Mini. My name is Arvin Bautista. Thank you for joining me. And that was the DC Comics Style Guide. Go out to your local shops and support them. This is well worth the price. I think it's like $100 or maybe a little less. $95 cover price. Pick it up. It's so fantastic and quite a rare treat for any fan. See you guys next time.